Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Parama Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Good day. In continuation of the last episode, where we left our poor Pandu king in a dilemma because he could not beget any sons. We also saw how the sages who were traveling towards Himalayas did not allow him and his wives to join them to go to the higher realm of heavens. So Pandu Raja tells them the various types of runas. Runa in the sense debt. Why he is telling this debt is to impress upon his wives the need for a son. Towards that end, he says there are basically four runas which a man has to fulfill. What are the four runas as per Pandu, which is elaborated in the Mahabharata? The first runa Pandu says is Devaruna or debt to the god. The second is Rishi Runa, meaning debt to the sages. The third is Manushya Runa, meaning debt to the people. And the fourth and the final thing is Pitru Runa, meaning debt to forefathers. He says all these debts have to be cleared before we exit from the world. And he explains to his wife what are these runas. The first one is Devaruna or debt to the god. What is the debt to the god which we have to repay? Did the god do something good for us? Are we indebted to him? Is the question which naturally crosses the mind. It is said the very fact of we being alive itself is due to the grace of God. God has blessed us to be born on the earth to fulfill certain obligations and to reduce our karma and increase our punya. He has given us an opportunity to be on the earth by infusing the life meaning the prana or the life-giving force. Nobody can give that life apart from God. We may build a Frankenstein monster we saw in Mary Shelley's novel, and in the present day there are a lot of AI-enabled robots. All things are good, all things are convenient, it is fine, AI is fine, robots is fine, everything is fine, but it has got no life because man cannot give life to any being. It is only the God who has to give. So God, by giving life to us so that we are alive now, we are indebted to him. This debt has to be cleared. And the second debt is debts to the rishis or sages. What is that debt to the sages? What have they done to us? We all know that there is a fundamental difference between man and other living beings. What is that fundamental difference? While birds and animals know only two things. What are they? They know how to hunt and get their food. And the second thing they know is to procreate. They know only two things. But however, in the present day scenario where animals and birds are bred in captivity in the zoos, if we leave them to the wild, definitely they cannot hunt or find their own food. But that is a different story. We are not talking about that. We are talking about in a natural setup, in the natural habitat. Animals and birds can do only two things. One is hunt or find their own food and eat, and the second thing is procreate. Whereas man, apart from this, he is endowed with the higher faculties of the brain. What are these higher faculties? He can talk, he can think, he can intuit, he can debate, he can experience the higher forms of emotions which animals and birds do not have. Why is that man is different this way? It is said in the scriptures that this is because due to the grace of rishis. So there is a debt to the rishis because they have given us the intellect and other higher faculties of human birth. We are indebted to them. That debt needs to be repaid. And the third thing is Manishya Runa. What is Manishya Runa or debt to the people? Right from the moment a child is born, a doctor or a midwife delivers the child, a nanny or a babysitter looks after the child when it is a baby. When you are in the school, so many people will be helping you. When you are in your job, so many of your colleagues and friends will help you. When you are married, your friends and relatives will be helping you apart from your own kids and wife. And whatever activity we do, 90% of the activity we do is not in isolation. So, in a man's life, we depend upon man or take help from men and women from thousands of people, not one, not two. Our entire life is taking help from others, directly or indirectly. This gives rise to a debt. Though we pay them monetary compensation in terms of money, it is said, whatever amount which you pay, it is not sufficient. Your debt remains. For how many people do we pay? We pay for our servant mates, we pay for our employees, we pay for our drivers, etc. But what about the indirect benefits and the other help which we are taking in our daily lives? So there is a debt, big debt to the Manushya or the people in general. So this has to be cleared. And finally, it is said there is debt to the forefathers. What is this debt to the forefathers? Debt to the forefathers, it is said, since we come from a certain lineage, in a certain caste, we have some customs, we follow some traditions. Who had laid down those traditions? Who had laid down the way which we are living now? It is because of our forefathers. As per the Hindu belief, they are already born and they are already living in some areas or some places on this earth. We do not know them. But when we repay the debt in the form of death rituals, it is said they who are living elsewhere, they will get benefited. Today we are like this because we were forefathers in some other birth. So somebody did shraddhas for us. That is why we are living in the state we are, whether it is good, bad, or ugly. So we owe a debt to the forefathers. Now Pandu goes on to explain how these debts are to be cleared. And it is important for us to know, as per our Hindu system, that every person has to clear all these debts. Coming to the first debt, debt to the gods or Devaruna. How do we clear that debt? Debt to the god is cleared by doing homa, havana, yagna, yaga, and similar spiritual activities. What exactly do we do in a homa or a havana? Simply, we see a homa kundla being built and a sacrificial fire being lit, and certain offerings are made along with ghee, and we say swaha, or we say idam namama, or we say dattam namama. Each of them have got a different significance which we will not talk here. But suffice it to say, a homa kundla is built and the god of fire Agni is invoked there, and through Agni we offer to the different devatas. When we are offering this, Agni ensures that whatever offerings we are making in the Homa Kundla will reach the respective gods depending upon the mantras which is being recited during that time. So when these offerings reach the god, it is said God is pleased and his debt is cleared. So to clear debt of the god or to clear Devaruna, we need to do yagna, yaga, homa, havana, and other spiritual activities. Thereby we will clear the debt. Now the second debt is a debt to the rishis. How do we repay? It is said by studying the Vedas, Upanishads, Puranas, Mahabharata, Ramayana, Bhagavata, and all other ancient texts, we will please the rishis. The reason being, it is all these texts, all these writings, or all this knowledge is attributed to the sages. So when we read those scriptures, when we understand, when we debate, when we implement, and when we question, it is said rishis are pleased because the rishis, by giving the intellect, we have utilized that. By that, the rishis are pleased and we are cleared of the debt. Now, coming to the Manushya Runa or debt to the people. How do we repay debt to the people? By leading a dharmic life. What is a dharmic life? That is quelling all our negative qualities like deceitfulness, lying, cheating, and other negative qualities which a man has. It has to be controlled. In its place, all the positive qualities of a man, like always being truthful, always being honest, being kind and courteous, having a helping nature, following a dharmic way of life. If a person or if a society is practicing all these positive virtues, then the debt to the people is repaid, it is said. Now we come to the most important runa called Pitru Runa. Now, debt to the mother. What is the debt we owe to the mother? A woman, after conceiving a baby, carries that baby for 9 long months, and after delivery, she cares the baby and the child, and even as a young adolescent, and even as a man or a woman. A mother cares for her kids throughout her life. So there is a runa created here. There is a debt created to the mother. And it is interesting to note the Shastras say that debt to a mother can never be repaid. And, in our scriptures, nothing is mentioned about the repayment of that debt. So, coming back here to father and forefathers, how do we repay the debt to our forefathers? As long as your father is alive, respect his words. And as long as your mother is alive, protect her. And the second thing is, do the death rituals with utmost devotion. Finally, the most important way of clearing the debt of forefathers or Pitruruna is by begetting children. Begetting sons, it is said. Because when a son is born, you and your forefathers are assured of death rituals at frequent prescribed intervals, so that your next life will be comfortable. If death rituals or the shraddha is not done properly, your forefathers who are already in some other place, they will be suffering. We do not know who is our forefather. He may be our neighbor, or he may be sitting in some other continent. He may be living in some other place. We do not know. But as long as shraddhas are being done properly, your forefathers who are living elsewhere, as I said earlier, they will be living comfortably. So, aputrasya gatirnasti is frequently said in our Puranas, meaning a person who does not have a son will not attain the higher realm of heavens. We saw in one of our earlier episodes, there are various lokas or seven upper lokas. So when death rituals are not done, the person will not ascend the higher realm of the lokas. However, having said so, we need to bring an important point here, saying that if sons are not there, then those parents will not attain heavens. Will they not go to the higher realms of heaven? No, they also can go. Son only facilitates you to go to the higher realm only if you have accumulated sufficient punya. A person is basically bad with a lot of accumulated sins. Even if he has got a son who does the death ritual, he can't go to the higher heavens because his sins are too much. He needs to take so many future births in order to ascend to the heavens. Similarly, a person who has accumulated lot of punya but does not have a son will also reach the heavens. So for this, a small interesting story is narrated in the Mahabharata. It is said once there lived a family of ascetics consisting of husband, wife and son. The name of the sage or the hermit was Rukmangada. And he has his wife, and through his wife he had got a son by name Dharmangada. This Rukmangada, he fell in love with a Mohini and married her. Before marriage, the Mohini put a condition that Rukmangada will listen to the words of Mohini in whatever way it is possible. Rukmangada agreed for that condition and he married and they lived for some time. This sage Rukmangada was a very great ascetic. Otherwise, he fell in love with that Mohini, that's a different matter. But otherwise, he was an extremely dharmic person, doing a very great tapas and penances. More importantly, he followed the Ekadashi fasting very diligently. Not even once in his life he missed that fasting, Ekadashi fasting. Once it so happened on an eve of Ekadashi, that is tomorrow is Ekadashi, on the eve of that Ekadashi day, that night, Mohini told to Rukmangada, "O Rukmangada, don't do Ekadashi tomorrow." Rukmangada says, no, that is not possible. I have been doing Ekadashi fasting right from my younger days and I can't skip it. For whatever reason, I can't skip the Ekadashi Vrata or Ekadashi fasting. For which this Mohini says, no, you had promised me at the time of marriage that you will listen to my words. Now listen to my words. You stop that fasting. Rukmangada says, what do you gain by me stopping the fasting? Or what should I do to continue my fast? How can I please you otherwise? And the Mohini says, okay, if you want to do fasting, first cut the head of your son and bring it here. Then only you can do the fasting. Sage Rukmangada is thoroughly aghast at this cruelty of his second wife, and he narrates this incident to his first wife and his son Dharmangada. Dharmangada, he himself being a very great ascetic, he says, "Oh father, cut my head and take it to the Mohini. Give it to her. But don't stop Ekadashi Vrata. Don't stop your fasting. Cut my head and take it." Rukmangada was ready to cut the head. He took a sharp weapon and he was ready to cut the head of his son Dharmangada. This story illustrates the fact that if son was more important than spiritual practices, then Rukmangada would not have tried to cut his son's head. He would have rather foregone the Ekadashi fasting than cut his son's head, because if he loses his son, then he cannot attain the higher realms of heaven. And so this shows that while having a son is good, but son alone is not enough to repay the debt of the forefathers. Having narrated all these runas and how it has to be repaid, Pandu says to Kunti, "O Kunti, I have cleared the debt of the god. Devaruna I have cleared, because when I was a king, I have done lot of yagas, lot of yagnas, homas, havanas, and lot of spiritual practices I have followed. Thereby, my runa or my debt to the god is repaid. And I have studied the Vedas, I have analyzed the Vedas, and I have spread the knowledge of the Upanishads and Puranas. So, thereby, my debt to the rishis is also repaid. And when I was the king, I helped lot of people in their normal day-to-day lives, and I behaved as an extremely dharmic king. Thereby, my runa or debt to the people is also paid. Now, this Pitruruna, though this Rukmangada and Dharmangada story is told, that son is not the only criteria that applies to people who have crossed the childbearing age, or they cannot conceive, or they don't have their husbands now. But here, I have got two wives. I need a son. I need to repay the debts of my forefather. The only option is Kunti, go to some other person, sleep with him, and get me a child. Kunti listens to all this, and whether she will go to some other person in order to beget the son, or whether she refuses, or will she bring some other excuse, will be the text of my talk in the next episode. Thanks for watching. Bye.